What's up, guys? Welcome back. And we have an interesting post today. This one is called The State of Marilyn Monroe. And it's interesting because it's, as it pertains to states, sometimes it can be a very subtle shift. And I'm going to read the post, read a couple comments, and then give you guys my 2 cents on this and what's really occurring and going on with this. So this is a clip. It looks like it's some sort of magazine clipping from an old magazine. There's a picture of her in front of Grand Central Station, and I can link the Reddit post down below so you guys can check it out. So here it is in quotes. It says, "I'll never forget the day Marilyn and I were walking around New York City, just having a stroll on a nice day. She loved New York because no one bothered her like they did in Hollywood. She could put on her plain Jane clothes and no one would notice her. She loved that. So as we were walking down Broadway, she turns to me and say, 'Do you want to see me become her?' I didn't know what she meant, but I just said yes, and then I saw it. I don't know how to explain what she did because it was so very subtle, but she turned something on within herself that was almost like magic. And suddenly, cars were slowing and people were turning their heads and stopping to stare. They were recognizing that this was Marilyn Monroe as if she pulled off a mask or something. Even though a second ago nobody noticed her. I'd never seen anything like it before." And this is quoted by Amy Green, who is the wife of Marilyn's personal photographer, Milton Green. And this, I've seen things like this before. I've seen certain people can snap into and out of states, especially people that have I guess I'd like to say manipulative people, narcissistic people. I'm not sure that Marilyn Monroe was a narcissist. Definitely actors, though, have this ability. And people that are very good at acting can shift in and out of a state. If you watch, there's behind the scenes of like Leonardo DiCaprio, for example. And, I've experienced this myself in real life as well. But you can see it on some of these things behind the scenes where he just shifts into character like immediately because he's snapping into the state of that character. And so that's what Marilyn Monroe is doing here. And it's very interesting because, Neville Goddard was also an actor himself. And that was what he did in his career. He lived in Los Angeles. Before he became a spiritual teacher and stuff, he was an actor. And he loved to dance and all these other things. He loved to perform, right? But so when he talks about switching into the state, that is like a method acting. That is like classic method acting, is to become that version of yourself, become that character. And so that's what Marilyn did here. And I've acted before. I actually used to act. In fact, when I was very young, I was about what was I? Maybe like 9 years old, 10 years old. I was in a commercial for Sears because I used to live in Palo Alto, California. We went up to San Francisco. I took acting classes. My mother encouraged me to act. I was in plays and things like that. And actually was pretty good, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I got a lot of people telling me, people would come up to me after these plays and come up to my parents and stuff. And it's really just snapping into that. Now, I haven't done acting per se in such a long time, but it had always been so enjoyable to me as a kid to do that because it's like playing a different character. And that's one thing that we can definitely do in our journey of self-development and our journey of embodying, identity shifting, becoming that version of ourselves, embodying the ideal version of ourselves. There's a quote that Robert Greene says that's like to mold yourself like clay because you are the greatest project you can ever work on. So if you take and you look at different people who have admirable characteristics, admirable qualities, people that are charming, people that are, they maybe have different mannerisms or different ways of speaking that you like and you want to emulate. Ultimately, that's what we all do anyways. We are all actors, whether we realize it or not, because we all pick up these things subconsciously or consciously throughout our lives and as we're growing up, and we start to adopt them. We start to kind of assimilate this into our character. But now narcissists and actors, all of these people, they really do this to a larger degree because, from what I understand about narcissism, since I've done more research on it lately, these people don't really have any sense of self. And so they're constantly pinging off their environment to have all their sense of self, all their validation, all their sense of worth. And so they're constantly forming their personality like a chameleon to adapt to the personalities that they're interacting with. So they will change their personality depending on who they're talking to, change their interests, adapt their interests and qualities, almost like a mannequin or like a character copy of those person's traits and stuff. It's kind of bizarre and weird, but to be honest, all of us have a little bit of narcissistic traits. We all grow up as children kind of doing this and mimicking others. But people that are adult narcissists, it's like they never evolve beyond this, and it's very, very, very strange to see, because you might see somebody that flips into a completely different personality. It's almost like you don't recognize this person anymore. But of course, we all have different kind of masks that we wear depending on who we're interacting with. We might act a little bit differently with our family than we do with our friends, and then we act a little bit differently in our relationship or at our job. And so there's all like a little bit of this going on, but what we can do is like realize that we're already doing this to some degree, and then kind of just turbocharge that. And not in a negative, weird way like narcissistic people do, but in a positive way where we're now becoming even more authentic. We're now becoming even more that genuine, authentic expression of ourselves that, puts our best foot forward and really shows up as that version of ourselves that we want to be, the one that does the work, the one that does what they say they're going to do, and the one whose actions and words are in alignment. And, turn on the charm. You can do that just like Marilyn Monroe. She probably just, as I read this post, I just imagine that before she's just kind of like walking, she doesn't want to be known. She doesn't want to be noticed, right? She doesn't want to be recognized walking down Broadway. But then it's just like that simple spark, that simple pep in her step, and then her like glint in her eye kind of appears, and she's just doing like the whole Marilyn Monroe thing, just like strutting around and stuff. And I could just imagine, I could see it in my mind's eye, kind of her doing this, and it's really it's something that we all can do. It's something that we all can tap into, because we all do this, like I said, to some extent anyways. Just imagining that confident version of ourselves. Imagine that state that you've been in where you felt completely self-assured, where you felt conviction in who you are, and the self-belief that that you are this positive person that is worthy of love, is worthy of admiration, is worthy of being loved by everybody that you interact with. And then it's like you fall in line with that. And I've mentioned, I have videos of, going out, like robotic affirming. And it's just like going on a trip, affirming, yeah, everybody loves me. Everybody just loves me. Everybody just loves being around my energy. Everybody like loves giving me things for free. And it gets reflected in my reality. I'll get things for free a lot of the times by putting out that type of thing. But this can be done for anything. People just admire me. People just love the way that I communicate. They tell me that I'm an amazing communicator. These are all things you can say to yourself, right? People love the way that I express myself. People love my style. People are giving me compliments all the time and just loving the way that I am showing up, right, in my reality. I'm so confident. I'm so bubbly. I'm so friendly. I'm so extroverted, if that's what you want. I'm just the life of the party, right? People can't resist me. People can't resist my energy. They can't resist being around me. And, the more that we do that, the more that we kind of snap into that state, and then we'll see the reflections of it. We will see the reflections. There's a couple comments in here. In a biography, I read a passage in which, before the fame, she said she would be a Hollywood star. When someone told her that many girls had the same dream, she replied, "I dream stronger." And that's an interesting quote, right? She clearly had this belief in herself that she was going to be this, and she practiced. I guarantee you, she did a lot of practice on her voice, practiced in the mirror, who this Marilyn Monroe character was, and adopted that. And that's how she's able to just snap into it. And we all have that. We all have the power to do that, the ability to do that, whether we are an actor or not. We're all doing it, like I said, to some degree or another in our daily lives anyways. So why not just embrace it? Why not just embellish it even more and just lean into that ability that we have to kind of like snap into these different characters of ourselves, these different versions of ourselves, that confident version that knows that you're going to get what you want in your life. So anyways, an interesting post here for sure. And yeah, turn on that Marilyn energy. She turned on the energy. And And then this, so somebody said, this reminds me of the lectures where Neville talks about stopping the action within and freezing everyone around him, where people would stop in the middle of eating soup and talking and just freeze until Neville breathes life back into them. Somebody said, I'm skeptical. Which lectures are these? They said, actually, he said it in many lectures. If you start reading them, you'll find it. I think most people don't read many lectures because he said many astounding things that rarely people talk about. For example, the Titanic happened because an author wrote a book about it before in a book, suggesting that the imagination of the writer did cause it in the future. To find it, you'd have to read most lectures, not just a few. They said, I just read it in The Law and the Promise. And there's another link to another video that's, I guess, in another lecture of his. And then, yeah, I mean, apparently Neville talks about some pretty wild stuff. And I mean, it's not that surprising. A lot of the stuff that Neville talks about is it really sounds kind of far out there. But because it's almost like we don't think that now because so many people talk about Neville's teachings as if they are just laws and facts now, that we're almost in this bubble of this community kind of like immune or to that reality. If you bring some of this stuff to somebody else that hasn't heard of his teachings, they're gonna be like, what the heck is this guy talking about, right? But that's kind of like dissipated from our minds because we've kind of accepted the stuff that he says. There are lectures where he speaks of being in two places at once, his sister's house and his bed, I believe. Also, in a book, Carlos Castaneda's wife talks about how he was seen in LA and San Francisco at the same time. And right before she was going to ask about it, someone else asked about him being seen in different places at the same time. The opposite of this is also true. I have intended that I would be invisible at work. I was dealing with some stressful stuff and in a bad mood, didn't want to talk to anybody. This was a while back before I knew much about manifestations. I did things, but I wasn't aware of our full capabilities yet. Anyways, I got to work and noticed quickly that my coworkers were asking questions of each other about things that I know the answer to. In fact, I was the only one in the room who knew those answers, and they should know that. They kept using the phrase, too bad no one here can help us. And it wasn't until later that day after this continued to happen that I remembered I had intended to be invisible to those people. Yeah, that's just, it's interesting, man. It really is interesting. The universe is incredibly mysterious. I've said this before, and people have these kinds of crazy experiences. That's the reason why some actors end up living in the skin of their characters even after the movie's wrapped. There's so many examples. And yeah, like what's his name? Heath Ledger, killed himself after being in Batman, playing the Joker, getting into that state, living in that emotional state all the time, I guess. And that, that's very tragic. It's very tragic that happens. But that's why, again, I, said in recent posts, like not to allow yourself to be pulled down by your emotions. Your emotions are transitory, and we have to temper them with logic and rational thinking. I know I'm coming to this way late, but I was recently thinking about this, how acting must be a reality creation on some level. It is. That's why it's so fun. That could definitely explain certain uncanny parallels between actors and the characters they embody. Somebody says Freddie Mercury was also an extremely shy and socially anxious person off the stage. The disparity between his onstage persona and his offstage personality is so large that it's like two completely different people. He was as flamboyant and energetic as it gets. He didn't control the audience. He commanded the audience. He was magical, a true rock star on stage, but off stage, he was very, very shy. When questioned, he would politely give short and quiet answers. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, and somebody says, I remember reading this years back, we all have this ability within us. And that's what I'm telling you guys right now. We can look at a story like this, or we can look at somebody like Marilyn Monroe, or any of these actors that we admire, and we all have this ability. And, I've said this before as well, but when I do my group coaching, part of the training that we're going to do is looking at ourselves in the mirror or in our phone camera and embodying those characteristics. Once we have a vision of who it is that we want to be and the way that we want to show up and all of these different things that we're going to embody as these these qualities in our character, then we're going to practice in the mirror or in our camera so that we're able to embody those qualities, because essentially we're not like faking anything. We're just upping all the qualities that we want more of. If we want more like better communication skills, if we want better, more effective body language, if we want better tonality in our voice, these are all things that we practice. And it's like, it's not weird. People, it's so weird to me that, in every regard in life, people are like, oh yeah, you want to go to school to learn this. You want to go to school to do that. You like for acting, even you go to acting classes, and that's totally fine. But to practice in the mirror, developing those skills outside of the context of taking an acting class, people are like, oh, that's weird, but it's not. It's like, if you want a better voice, if you want to even improve the quality of your vocals, improve the quality of your breathing, first off, you need to start breathing from the belly. If you're taking very shallow breaths, you're going to be talking from up here, and it's not going to be like, you get that nasally kind of voice where it's like coming all from up here. It really starts from the breath first if you want to be able to have a louder voice, where you can project your voice better, where it cuts through noise better. It's much easier for people to hear you, for people to understand you. And there's just so many things that we may be stifled or may have adopted bad habits throughout our lives, and by practicing them, we can improve the way that we're showing up in the world. So yeah, somebody says what's always struck her is that when she was younger, she would look at the movie theaters titles and actors and said that she always knew one day that her name would be up there. Yeah, and somebody's here, take some method acting classes. The Stanislavski method acting, which I think she did, acting classes can really help with manifestation. And that's what I'm telling you guys right now. That is really what I'm saying. And, Neville, who everybody loves in this community, he took acting classes. He was an actor. And I guarantee you that had a huge impact on his ability to manifest things. Okay, I'm gonna read a couple posts because this is some interesting. We got some kind of like anecdotal stories here, little success stories. So somebody said, amazing. I can do something similar actually. So where I live, rental properties have apps on them within minutes, right? Well, the owner of the house I was renting was selling, so I had to find a new house. At first, everyone I contacted blew me off or ignored me. Then I thought, how do I feel when I'm talking to a man? What vibe do I throw out there? So I used that and contacted 4 people who all answered me back in minutes. The first house, the owner told me she picked me over 50 other people, that she was just drawn to me. She didn't know why. My sister went to see the house with me, and after we were done, she looks at me and she says, how the F did you just do that? Are you a magical unicorn? The woman basically begged you to move into her house. So I explained everything to her and how as a teenager, I was aware of it, but didn't know how to turn it on and off. But yeah, sounds like I'm tooting my own horn, but you can literally just throw this pay attention to me vibe out, and people respond. It still surprises me. That's interesting. That's an interesting way to put it. Pay attention to me, and me is capitalized. 2 last recent ones. I have a friend who's currently in jail, so we write letters occasionally. I asked him how he saw me, and he said that he feels connected to me all day, every day. That he feels like I am calling him, and that I exude goddess-like energy. Not even making this up. I can take a pic of the letter if anyone wants to read it, and this is coming from someone I've never flirted with or even shown romantic interest in. The other, I basically had a dude staring at me for hours. I'm the opposite of his type. I'm pale with light eyes and dark hair, and he likes way darker skin and dark eyes and MILF women. I'm petite. Anyway, he told me later that I'm the most beautiful woman he's ever seen, and I'm not even his type, but he was just magnetically pulled to me. This dude is a 9 out of 10, 6'3", and 230 pounds of muscle with tons of money and women throwing themselves at him. So yeah, it's pretty cool. If you read all this and want some tips, message me. So somebody says, this is so impressive. Can you give me some tips? Sometimes I want to be chosen and seen. Sometimes I want to be ignored. The latter happens more often though, so any tips would help. She writes, you totally can be ignored too. I have a Nissan Altima that I gave my stepmom and intended that it was invisible to cops, right? So it's been hit by other cars about 5 times. Also, the registration is about 3 years expired, yet my mom never gets pulled over. So the best way I can explain it is, when you want to be seen, put those shoulders back and imagine that everyone is staring at you. Direct eye contact, slight smile like you got caught sending a naughty text. In fact, think of how powerful you felt when sending something like that to someone you know that you're driving crazy. And just project it outward. You know everyone's staring, you know you're a hot shit supermodel, and when you want to be invisible, don't feel anything. Just completely neutral, the way you'd feel at home making coffee or checking the mail. You're just a normal everyday person that people don't pay the slightest bit of attention to. Hope this makes sense. Um, reply here. Haha, love this. I have the same intention when I'm driving because I do a ton of driving. My intentions basically just boil down to car accidents don't happen to me. That's just not my fate. I never worry about it. I know it's not a possibility in my life. Same thing with cops. I know I'm innocent. There's no reason for a cop to pull me over and waste my time. On the other hand, about 2 years ago, my girlfriend was in a pretty stressful situation, living in a van and stealing people's mail to buy drugs. She's fine now. I rescued her from that garbage. But whenever she's in the car with me, she still worries about getting pulled over. 2 out of 3 times in my entire life I've been pulled over were when my girlfriend was in the car with me. In the last 2 years, when she noticed a cop on the street, instantly spiking her anxiety about it and drawing the cops to us. Yes, I literally never get pulled over either. And like you, people see a cop and get all worried. And I'm like, I could go 90 and not get pulled over right now. Chill. So that's awesome. It's crazy how much we can actually do just by thinking. Wow. Yeah. Well, I am realizing that I've done this all my life, and it's no different from entering a certain state. When I want to enjoy all eyes on me, it is first that I know all eyes are on me, and the reaction follows. Yeah. This paints a better picture. Thank you. Invisible mode really helped me when I'm walking home at night. You're a background character that no one even takes a second look at. You blend in with the scenery. Stay safe. I do the same thing. It's like an energy you turn on and off like a light switch. Somebody else said, yeah, it works, and I know how to turn it on and off too. I compare it to glamoring, like what vampires do. The OP of this comment thread said, never thought of it that way, but I guess, yeah, kinda. So I went to Walmart a few nights ago, had makeup on and sort of cute clothes, but I didn't want anyone paying attention to me. So I completely turned it off. Not one person even glanced at me. And the cashier didn't even speak to me, LOL. I was just another person. Then yesterday, I went to Hobby Lobby at the mall. I wore a dress and turned it on. I had 3 different women ask me where I got my shoes and my dress, compliment my hair, etc. Cashier asked me where I got my purse. Some weird dude followed me for a while. Men stared. It's like being a completely different person. It's wild. And until this post, I really truly thought everyone did it naturally. That's amazing. Can you explain how you do it? Do you just constantly enter a state of a goddess energy? She said, just posted this comment, and sort of, but more like, every woman or man is jealous and everyone wants you. You'll catch people staring for sure. Also, Tyra Banks talked about she smiles with her eyes. A smize, she said. That can help you feel that. I'm amazingly attractive and unbothered energy. Thank you for all this. I do think I've felt the energy you're talking about at times, and I think I've mostly been in invisible mode for decades, most of the time for decades, PTSD. But I did decide a few years ago that I would sometimes walk around as if I knew a joke no one else did, and it was a hilarious one. And suddenly, people I didn't even know would smile at me, be nice, tell me how sweet I was, and just telling me their life story out of the blue. Whenever I consciously decide to do that, a lot of strangers start to be nice to me. I call it resting Miss Santa face. LOL, yeah, sultry might not work for this bod, but you and the whole thread have made me realize to think about if I could project some kind of badassery or confidence in there too. Yeah. Yeah, it's super true, guys. I'm glad I went through this comment thread because this is what I'm talking about, turning it on. We all have that power, and I do it. I've definitely done it, but I do it all the time, I suppose. But I don't think about it consciously a lot of the time. There'll just be certain times where I'm out and about, and people just are like, oh my gosh, like I'll have people coming up to me, guys giving me compliments, women complimenting me, and there's other times, like I said, where like they're talking about, where I kind of feel a way more low key, almost like people are just, they couldn't care less, about my presence in the room. It's like when I walk into a room, right? But more often than not, I do have that. I do, and again, it depends on the state that I'm in. It depends on how I'm feeling. But this is honestly a reminder to me as well that this is definitely something that we can consciously do. And I have had that feeling before of like knowing people's eyes are on me, and it just works. Like then I turn around and look, and like people are staring at me. So it's definitely reflected in that. And we all have this ability. So hopefully this helps in your ability to do the same thing. Take these little anecdotes, these little successes that people have, this whole entire post as permission that you can do this as well, and start doing it and utilizing it in situations where you want to feel that type of energy. So with that being said, guys, much love as always. Drop this a like, hit me with a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. Hit me with a subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.